Saying the future of DC films is very unclear is an understatement, and with the release of Joker, the Zack Snyder cut of Justice League, the argument of the Ayer cut of the 2016 Suicide Squad film, and the upcoming Robert Pattinson Batman film, it only becomes more confusing. So a canon, violent, heartfelt splatterfest full of character and humour? That is very welcome at a time like this. I'll give you a fair warning now, spoilers ahead. To be redundant, the 2016 film in my eyes seemed to be an attempt at countering Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy. The mainline universe films are focusing on big-name characters? Let's release a side film focusing on lesser-known characters to expand the universe. With this school of thought, plus using the Joker and Harley Quinn as the main selling point of the entire film, we may have a sale on our hands. We hadn't seen a live-action movie Joker since Heath Ledger, and we've never seen a modern live-action Harley Quinn before. So the third film in the youthful DC extended universe being this big team-up picture featuring key DC characters with zero establishment? The phrase jumping the gun comes to mind. Actually, that's the perfect way to describe the DCEU as a whole, in my opinion. However, The Suicide Squad pulls its name out of the mud with memorable characters, a gripping story, and reasonable stakes as the film progresses. It opens the best way it could, following Michael Rooker's throwaway character Savant, who is very down-to-earth compared to the criminals and lunatics both known and new he is surrounded with. All of them tossed into an actual suicide mission, and it all goes horribly. Following this character's perspective instead of any of the loopy characters brings a larger realistic sense of dread when the situation goes poorly. Though humorous at times, the massacre leaves only two characters surviving, as Savant breaks and makes a desperate though futile attempt at escaping. That's a pretty heavy way to start the film. Which ties into my next point, the bait and switch. Using this in any film is extremely risky for marketing. Any trailer or TV spot for a film that uses a bait and switch as a plot point regardless of when they use it, risks breaking the trailer apart or the trailer spoiling far too much. Or worse, it can completely miss the mark and wrongly represent the type of film it is trying to be. After all, almost everyone in the opening scene dies to make way for the new main characters. That is a hefty bait and switch to work with. Thankfully, in the trailers, characters in both of these teams interact with each other enough that it still leaves you guessing before watching the film. Stakes. In the 2016 film, the stakes are do this or the world will end. We can't call in Superman because the previous film killed him off, hence the team of villains. These are very high stakes, but ones that aren't really believable given this seemingly very underpowered team. But instead of an underdog story, it becomes just unbelievable that this enemy could be defeated that easily. In the Suicide Squad, stakes are thrown out the window with the first scene, killing off characters left and right, including a main character from the first film, Captain Boomerang, showing you that no character is safe from an untimely and gore-filled demise. When we get into the film, the relevant stakes inside the plot are rather reasonable, and only raise as it continues. What starts as a simple smash and grab results in the team going further than we could expect, and it keeps climbing, indirectly taking part in a revolution, rescue mission, exposing damning evidence of the most powerful government on the planet to the public, eventually developing into a save-the-world situation. Like clockwork, all of these plot points work one after the other in an easy-to-digest chapter format. There's a real sense of cost as the story progresses with these stakes, and it feels natural, except maybe one scene where Harley Quinn becomes John Wick, but I'll address this. But if I had to hammer the nail in with one thing that puts the Suicide Squad over the 2016 embarrassment, one reason and one reason only: actual character development. In the 2016 film, we get a bunch of characters introduced through walls of text and a montage. Throughout, none of the characters evolve or really do anything of significance at all now that I think about it. My main concern with the sequel was, do the characters leave the movie different people from who they were when they arrived? With the exception of most of Team A at the beginning of the film, who entered it as people and left it as several piles of mush. Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn? That's an easy no. She's been rather one-note for several films now, but it isn't a broken formula. Harley is insane, but she's very smart and athletic, so we get a glimpse into what she can do when she applies herself, even through her warped perspective of reality. The 2016 film didn't do this at all, and Birds of Prey did it extremely poorly.
I'm not joining your goddamn Suicide Squad.
We'll see.
Bloodsport, a sharpshooting hitman sporting impressive weaponry with daughter issues played by Idris Elba. Because of this, you immediately compare this character to Deadshot, Will Smith's character from the 2016 film, who was set up exactly the same way, except this time the relationship with his daughter is very hostile, though still very much protective. Welcome back to Bloodsport. Next up we have Ratcatcher, a sleepy, uncaring young girl that can control rats, played by Daniela Melchior. Her entire arc is revolved around opening herself up to others and actually putting in an effort. Also, we get Taika Waititi playing her loving late father who died of an overdose. but I'll take him regardless of how he can fit into the story. Everyone loves Taika Waititi. Her character arc feels very short. I like to think this is done on purpose due to this one quote from her father.
Rats are the lowliest and most despised of all creatures, my love. If they have purpose, so do we all.
Having a purpose is important as a person, let alone as a character, so overcoming this emptiness of having no reason to live life, bonding with the new dysfunctional group and actually accomplishing something is how she becomes the key in winning the final battle, and how her character as a whole supports Bloodsport's character even further. Back to Bloodsport. Through Ratcatcher, we get this projection of his daughter onto her. While she tells the group her origin story, he begins to open up, sharing the reason behind his phobia of rats, which up to this point in the film is shown just as a joke. Originally, Bloodsport didn't want anything to do with the squad, least of all be their leader. His solution while being locked up is to distance himself from anyone until Amanda Waller threatens to lock his delinquent daughter in the same prison that he shares with countless villains. This push from Amanda and emotional connection to Ratcatcher turns Bloodsport from a one-dimensional hitman into a caring leader that protects the innocent. Who is still a killer for hire, I think that's important to remember.
Robert Dubois.
Next up we have Peacemaker, played by John Cena, another soldier type, but this one has a huge ego to swing around to rival Bloodsport. There's little to say about Peacemaker. John Cena plays him extremely well as a tone-deaf hypocrite with a straight face willing to kill anyone in the name of peace. His entire character reminds me of one quote from another silver-headed murderer.
I think you're confusing peace with quiet.
Though he has what I can only describe as determined shame by his actions, he remains consistent throughout the film. Maybe we'll see more development in the upcoming Peacemaker series. Now we have King Shark, aka Nanawe, played by Sylvester Stallone of all people. Admittedly, he doesn't do all that much and is posed as the child-minded muscle type with the emotional stance of being lonely through physically being unable to have friends because he is rather dumb and keeps eating anyone that gets too close. So having a dynamic that could stand up to and domesticate him was step one in turning King Shark from the one-note muscle type into an emotional observing point. This one is very obvious and easy to follow through visual cues, mainly the scene where the squad is having a good time at a bar waiting on a target while old Sharky has to wait in the van. Poor old Sharky. Before we get into my favourite part of the film, let's focus on minor characters. Amanda Waller is easily the most boring part of this film, once again being the desperate paranoid bureaucrat, and I think it's also done on purpose. She's overshadowed by her staff who initially are literally betting against the squad, half-arsing their job at the cost of the mission and are generally uncaring. But throughout the film, through Amanda's harsh decisions, they rise up against her from desk jockeys to proper guy in the chair roles, helping the squad from home base. Why? Because most US government types are apparently scummy and it's very easy to root against that. Anyway, here's my favourite part of the Suicide Squad that pushes it above most of what the DCEU has put out. Polka-Dot Man. One of Batman's Silver Age joke characters that poses no threat at all suddenly becomes a surprising powerhouse and easily the best character in the entire film. Polka-Dot Man, played incredibly by David Esmalchin, is arguably the soul of this entire film.
Oh, yeah.
Although Harley is completely crazy in the coconut, what about a villain who literally just has issues with nowhere else to go? With great purpose forced upon him as a child and him failing to live up to it, it continuously haunts him in a way that's portrayed to the audience as funny on the surface, but if you start to think about it, it actually becomes concerning. Being actually emotionally invested in his team, notably remorseful when one of the civilian characters allied with the squad dies and calls his teammates out on it when they don't care. Polka-Dot Man started the film with nothing and slowly gained everything he needed to fulfill his great purpose. Even though Polka-Dot Man is supposed to be a nothing villain from Batman's vast rogues gallery, one that at the beginning of the film is the quietest, traumatized, and suicidal.
I hope so. Oh, for fuck's sake.
By the end of the Suicide Squad, it all comes around for him with one struggling declaration.
I'm a superhero! I'm a motherfucking superhero!
Every single one of these new characters needed something when they entered the fray, and the only person willing to give it to them was each other. Bloodsport, allowing himself to be open and vulnerable with others. Peacemaker, a capable team with a direct mission. King Shark, friends willing to let him and them try. Ratcatcher, purpose with a reason to believe in it. And Polka-Dot Man? A chance. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed what you saw, please consider liking, subscribing, and sharing the video. It honestly helps me out more than you could imagine. And check out some of my other stuff too. Staying with the DC topic, I recommend my review of the 2019 Joker film. Joker is a cinematic masterpiece. I also have other uploads, so check those out too. I hope you'll enjoy them. Until next time.